I would probably take an average 1-2 grinder playing his A game over an average 25-50 grinder playing his C game any day.
You're listening to the Mindset Advantage podcast. Each week, you'll get to peek inside the greatest minds in the game and discover what makes them successful.
Mental toughness separates those that can't handle the stress.
If you're going to treat it like an amateur, you're probably going to have amateur results.
Now here's your host, Elliot Rowe.
Hey, Elliot Rowe here. I'm very excited to announce that for the next few episodes, Stephen Baker will be guest hosting the show. Stephen has experience both as a professional poker player, strategic coach, and now a member of my mindset performance coaching world. I can confidently say that Stephen's one of the world's leading experts in poker mindset and performance, and I'm really excited to hear the conversations he has with some fantastic guests. And with that, here's Stephen.
Welcome to the Mindset Advantage podcast. I'm your host, high performance and mindset coach, Stephen Baker. Today, we're joined by JWIN. Jay took the bold leap from corporate security to the world of high-stakes professional poker. Jay's journey represents the risk-reward decision that many dream of but few execute. Today, we'll explore his transition, mental game strategies, and the mindset that allowed him to back himself when it mattered. So without further ado, let's get straight to it and hear what Jay has to say. So Jay, great to see you.
Hey, Stephen.
I've done a brief intro on you, but your story's really interesting. So I just want to give you a chance to just tell everybody who's not familiar with you about your background prior to becoming a professional poker player.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, poker was not something I played or did a lot of when I was much younger. Had a very traditional career path. I went to university, graduated, and I spent approximately my first 7 out of 8 years working at Apple, primarily in a supply chain and operations role. After that, I get recruited away to join a startup called Everlywell that eventually did very well. I joined as an early director, and I think now they're well over 400 employees at like $4 billion market cap. Around the same time, I got into a business school at the University of Texas, Austin. So I went back to school, graduated, and ultimately landed a position in a small marketing firm where I was a COO, where I eventually became COO. So did that about 2.5 years. And it was around this time where, I've been playing poker for about 2-3 years, saw a lot of good things and really just a combination of life events coming together, decided to go full time. And I think this would have put us around 2022 that I went full time. Yeah.
Now, you've described that, and to hear that sentence, it sounds quite effortless, but stepping back, you've left a very solid job, better than solid, it's fair to say, to pursue poker. Yeah. Tell me about the challenges of making that decision. That's particularly interesting to me because I made a transition from being a lawyer and had my own law firm into poker. Tell me about the challenges you faced.
It was actually a pretty interesting time. I mean, there were a lot of things going well. I had a rental property that was doing well. I mentioned that I joined a startup. There was a liquidity event, so I was able to sell some shares and then reinvest that into real estate. My marketing firm wanted to buy me out. They were pursuing a different path. And when I was quitting, and they offered to buy everyone's shares back. So it was a great time for me where I got like a big influx of capital. And in addition to that, I had been playing poker profitably for well over 2 years. And which actually, to be quite frank, I think the fact that I was making more money playing poker than my daytime job, that had a lot to do with the decision. And I just loved the game. And, I was far from great at it, but I was good enough to do well. And I wanted to push that edge and see what I could make of it. So no regrets. Certainly there's been a lot of challenges over the last 3 years playing full time. But with that being said, it felt like a very natural time to transition from a corporate job to playing poker full time. And I'm glad I took the risk.
Yeah. I mean, nonetheless, I suspect, there was some pressure externally. Now, it may not have been from people close to you. Maybe everybody was supportive, but it was interesting. I watched a podcast you did some time ago, and underneath there was a whole load of comments to the effect that, oh, this is irresponsible. This is a guy, a family guy who's got a good job and he's now becoming a professional poker player. Did you ever feel that pressure? And if so, how did you deal with it?
No, not really. I never felt that kind. I mean, I felt pressure in a lot of different ways. I think a lot of my pressure was from not being good enough at the game. When you start having that negative self-talk, that kind of thing, or when you're screwing up too many plays and, like the mental game aspect of the game. But I never had any sort of pressure from people that I don't know and who don't know me. I mean, the thing about my resume is that, I kind of have this body of work where if I ever needed to return to corporate America, it wouldn't be that big of a challenge. I can reposition myself and then get back in industry if I ever need. Now, obviously, the longer I stay in poker, maybe the harder it gets. But I don't think it'll be difficult for me to, let's say, get back in the industry making 70 to 80% of what I made. And if I ever had to go that route, then certainly it'd be something I would entertain. But I never worried about the financial parts of, I guess I'm pretty lucky and I never had to, but I just never really worried about that aspect of the game. But if you really want to read some mean comments, go to my first vlog number 1 on YouTube. There was a lot of people that thought I was crazy and losing my mind pursuing poker full time. But yeah, no regrets. I think I got a lot from it, and I'm thankful for the game. And whether I stay in it for another couple of years or forever, that's to be seen. But for now, I'm just really enjoying the game, really enjoying myself, and I don't have any plans to stop.
So let's just talk about the transition and the challenges within professional poker. Because I know from my own experience, I a bit like you, I was winning solidly before turning pro. And then my first year as a pro, I hit a downswing. And it suddenly feels very, very different when it's what puts the food on the table. Did you have that moment, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, so let's see. So the last income that I had, the last salary plus bonus that I had was $180K. That would have taken me through like that 2021, 2022 year. And including the years that I played leading up to that, as well as the 3 years after that, there was only 1 year that I made less than that. And that was by far the most difficult year. That would have put me at 2023, where I had multiple tumultuous downswings, a 60K downswing, a 90K downswing. And I finished positive for the year. But I mean, the amount of energy that I had to get me back into the positive zone really took everything out of me. Now, with that being said, I'm not too surprised that 2024 became my best year ever in poker. I think that, hard times create really good opportunities, and I'm pretty happy I was able to maximize from that. But yeah, like turning pro, I think in 2022, the first year was okay. First year was good. Not much better than any of my previous years, but it was like good. Like I was making more money than my part-time than my previous full-time job. So there's no reason to ever think bad. But at that 2023 year was pretty rough. Just going through all those downswings and wondering why I'm not putting the pieces together. But looking back now, I'm glad I went through it. I think I took a lot away from it, and most importantly from that experience, I think, was just like my willingness to get help in the mental game area. That I didn't think it was the strategy parts that was making me fail. I think it was like my preparation or lack of, the way I spoke to myself in game, the way I reviewed my hands afterward. There was a lot in the mental game space in my whole skill set that was lacking. So, that tough year gave me a lot. And I think that, it's something that's going to pay off forever.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. What did you do that turned things around so significantly? Because you 2024 has been a very good year for 2024 was a very good year for you on the back of 2023, which was tough. What specifically did you do which you felt really impacted you, particularly in the mental game area?
I think finally taking a step back, taking breaks. I mean, I did a lot of the things that it's not surprising, right? Like I started taking breaks. I started playing small. I spent a lot of time reviewing my hands and trying to figure out what parts of my strategy was lacking. I think taking a long vacation away from the game really helped because it made me enjoy the game back. Like when I returned to the felt, it was a much more enjoyable versus just kind of going through week and week of, flatlining or small losses or whatever, and just never winning. Like being able to take a step back really helped. Other things that I did during that time was, get additional coaches, trying to review different aspects of my game and how I prepare. And all of that came together to help me claw out of those tough spots. But yeah, 2023, I had 3 downswings that was worth noting. The 2 big ones was 60K and 90K. And I think the 60K took me like 2-3 months to claw out of. The 90K one took me about a month and a half. So I started just running super hot. Immediately, once I got my mind right. Now, interesting thing is like there was 2 large experiences that I took away, or 2 learning lessons that I took away from that period. Number one is you actually have to create the systems today to deal with the downswings of the future. So what I mean by that is like, at least in medicine, there's this adage, right, where it's a lot better to focus on the prevention than it is to invest resources in finding a cure. And there's a lot of things that poker players can do today to make sure that they don't face these downswings in the future. For example, like getting proper rest and nutrition, focusing on studying as much as today so they don't have to you shouldn't have to lose a lot of money to realize that you're weak in a specific node. Figure that out today, invest in those things today. So that way you're putting yourself in the best predicament to win, and you're not having to draw down on your account to figure out that something is lacking.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So like the first thing is just implementing these systems that puts you in a position to win. So that way the game becomes a lot easier to you. That was the first learning lesson. Now the second learning lesson, and I know I used the term downswings a lot, but the second learning lesson that I took away from that was that downswings might not even be a real concept. And at least it's not what you think it is. So we think of downswings as run bad. But I think for this period anyway, when I really took a step back and really reflected on my experience, what I realized was that I wasn't necessarily running bad. I think for the most part, I was playing bad. And so if run bad leads to play bad and play bad leads to bad results, is that really a downswing, right? Like that's the kind of thought that I took away from that experience. And I've heard several other pros kind of echo the sentiment, but I think it's really important that we always take a realistic reflection at ourselves and really ask ourselves, like, are we truly running bad, or is there something that we could be doing better? And I would imagine that if most people took an honest look at themselves, more often than not, it's just simply there's something that I can be doing better.
Yeah.
And that if I can do things better, my future losses are going to be minimized. And so that's the kind of stuff that I focus on today. But once again, that goes back to having systems, like having a good system in place so that way you're continually getting better will hopefully minimize any sort of future downswings that you have in front of you.
Absolutely. No, I really like the way you frame that, because, the saying, you repair your roof while the sun's shining is really important, I think, in poker, because if you wait until the tough times come, it feels so much harder.
Yep.
Could you just talk about your non-technical systems? So I suppose the kind of non-technical performance and mindset framework and routines you have, which you've now got in place as foundations in the way you've described. What are those systems? What do they look like?
Yeah, I mean, some things that I think about right away is like a while ago, I did a reflection on like, why is it that I'm playing the game? So there's certain questions that I remind myself, there's certain answers to critical questions that I answer to myself before these bigger games. Like, why do I play poker? Like just remembering that, you know, like I have a family, I have 2 kids. That's always a really nice motivator every single morning that gets me out of bed and into work, right? So just remembering that, you know, the money and the performance isn't for me, it's for other people, and that this game is much bigger to me than just a hobby. Like I have other people to support. Like that always gives a really nice context for whenever when I need to make a tough decision. That's one piece of it. Another thing too is like, technically speaking, you want to focus on your skill set, but we all know that there's an importance to studying that has to do with efficiency. So if you have a system to study, like if you know, sometimes you could just sit and study for hours and hours and hours. But I found that if you have a really good system, it takes a lot of the mental load off of studying. So for example, I have a worksheet that I look at 3 things, see if I can remember it off the top of my head. But I look at the balance between level of effort and impact, and I assign them a score, and that ultimately gives me a priority score. And that priority score helps me focus where my studying should be. So for example, if you know, I assign myself a 1, 3, and 5 rating. If something is a low level of effort, I give it a 5, which is the highest score. That's what you want. If something is high impact, I also give it a score of 5. So with those 2 things, there's a score of 10. If something is high impact, low level of effort, those are the things that I'm just prioritizing every day, because those are the things that doesn't take a lot of energy, but it gives me the best bang for my buck for every hour I pour into my studying. And then likewise, if it's something that's like low level of impact and high level of effort, but low impact, I mean, those are the things I just never, ever look at. So just having like a system of studying helps me focus on the right strategy stuff. But from like a mental game perspective, it just makes the game so much more enjoyable. Because if you notice, I just don't really work on the hard parts as much. I'm just really focusing on all the low-hanging fruits that makes me feel like I'm improving every day. And just doing that on a regular basis, you kind of feel like your game is just getting better.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of value in that approach at a general level of being super intentional in planning what you're going to study. And I mean, the evidence around this is that if you, for example, get up and say, today's my study day, what am I going to study? You're actually increasing cognitive load, because what you're having to do before you even get onto the track, as it were, is make some decisions about what you're going to study. What resources am I going to use? That kind of thing can and should be planned in advance. So I really like your system for doing that. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of pre-game preparation, and particularly on the mental side, what kind of things do you do to make sure you're performing at your best?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I picked up, and actually it's because of my work that I've done with you. There's things that I've changed. My earlier games, you know, I'm really just focused on visualization, thinking about the things that are important to me, so that before I get into the game, my mind is in the right place. Whereas I think even if last year I had a really great year, there was certainly a lot of mistakes I made just from like waking up, rolling out of bed, and just running to a game, like having no mental clarity in terms of what I want to accomplish for that session. Whereas now, you know, I really focus on the things that really drive me, and just make sure that my mind is in the right place and is primed to do some work. Right. There's something else that I do before and during a game, and it's called it's from one of the mental game of poker books. I think Jared Handler. There's an exercise in the book. I think the version 2 of his book. It's called the mental game checklist. And in short, there's your A game, your B game, and your C game. And you think about the 3 to 5 variables or whatever that you want to measure. And for example, the thing that I always measure in every game is my pre-flop. Am I playing strong ranges based off of what I see? Post-flop, am I executing based off of my plan and the strategies that I have set out? Value sizing, bluff sizing, am I targeting the correct range? And then lastly, it's like my table persona. Like, am I a value add to the table? Am I interacting with people? And then I grade myself on those 4 variables. Am I playing my A game, my B game, or my C game? But thinking about that before the game, I kind of know I know what my level, my A game should look like. And then in game, I have certain rules for myself where if certain rules are broken enough times, then I just end my session. That I realize that I'm playing losing poker, and it's probably better for me to just wait and play another day.
Yeah, I love it. Again, I love the clarity of knowing in advance when you should push the eject button. Because again, too often people try and leave that decision to effectively an in-the-moment decision, and it just doesn't work. People find all sorts of reasons to stay in the game. So that's really smart. Let's just talk a little bit about online poker, because you've done streaming before, and I think you're now going to double down on your streaming. Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about the challenges of streaming, and tell me why you're going to do more streaming. A little bit more about, I suppose, the idea of what poker is like as a profession in 2025, where your own personal brand becomes important more and more.
Yeah. When you say streaming, do you mean like at a live production show, like Poker Go, Lodge, Hustler, like that kind of thing? Or do you mean like at home? And
yeah, I mean, are you going to also be doing online cash game streaming or online tournament streaming in terms of those games, as well as the live games like at the Lodge or on Poker Go?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about both. They certainly both have its own challenges, but I'll start with the live streams. So a lot of people heard of me because I live pretty close to the Lodge, and I've been an early member of the Lodge live streaming crew. So I've played significant hours on that show. I've been fortunate that over the years, I've been favorable with the audience, and that has given me additional stream seats. But there's definitely work that you put in. Like, it's not one of those, like in poker, it's not just one of those things where you show up, you play your game, and you get invited back, right? Like, there's always something that everyone can add to the show to make it better. And sometimes it's in the form of a punt, right? Like, these shows, they benefit greatly from unique hands. Sometimes that's value, sometimes that's bluffs. But at the end of the day, the thing that is mostly important to these shows is how entertaining it is to the audience. And sometimes, 8 people playing perfect poker, that's not very entertaining. Sometimes it's like the banter, the smack talk at the table, the very unique outside of the norm plays. Like, all of that combined creates all of that combined plus some special some unique character development, that creates a great show. So for me, I benefited a lot, but over the years, one thing I've noticed is that, and of course, no one has ever pressured me to do this, but like, there's this external factor where I just want to be more and more and more entertaining, even though that's created a lesser poker version of myself from a strategy and technical perspective. And so for me, I've decided over the last few months, I just wanted to take a step back and then really figure out, like, what is my brand of poker? And then what kind of strategies can I create that allows me to play well, but at the same time, also entertaining to the audience. And because I didn't have an answer for that, once I started thinking more intentionally about that, I decided to take some time off of live stream and then really just think about, like, how do I create strategies that's going to be fun for the audience, but also something that I wanted to become my brand. So, there's plenty of challenges with those kind of live stream production shows. But ultimately, for players like me, you want to come through, you want to create a brand of poker that's going to be entertaining. Like, that's how you get a lot of seats, but also, like, that's how you actually win, right? Because at the end of the day, for poker players, that's what it mostly comes down to. But additionally to that, I know you and I talked on the side where I wanted to stream more. Like, I've always wanted to stream my play. I've done a little bit of that in the past, But lately I saw Doug Polk do his live streaming where he was playing various different formats from full ring to heads up across the different stakes. And I just felt really inspired by that. I thought it was super fun. Having 2 kids at home, I can only play so much live poker. So this would allow me to get an additional 10, 15 hours a week or whatever. But then also play a brand of poker where, there aren't a lot of external forces. Like I'm just going to play my brand of poker online, maybe hide some secret sauces that I have, but for the most part, just play good poker and, whatever happens, and really just re-engage my audience. Cause one thing I did really well years ago was create a decent sized audience, but unfortunately, life kind of took over and I left the social media space. But now I'm ready to get back into it and re-engage my audience.
You've touched on something important there, which is your family, and It is a challenge in poker to balance family, personal life with the game, because the game can be irregular, it can be demanding on time, it can be demanding on emotions as well, which it's not always easy to leave at the door. Tell me a little bit about how you've managed to achieve that balance.
I don't know if I've achieved the balance. I will say having an understanding spouse is really key to it all. And then just making sacrifices along the way, right? Like I think I realized, especially with the birth of my second son, I just realized like I'm never going to be, it's going to be nearly impossible for me to be the best version of poker that I can be, because to do that, it would just take a level of sacrifice that I'm not willing to do. Like I'm very present in both of my kids' lives. It's really important for me to take my toddler to school every day. Like I'm not able to take them to the park every day. So like taking them to school is a non-negotiable for me. Right. And then my wife steps in a bunch. She takes care of both of the kids. We have nanny support that allows me to be good at my job. But it's just one of those things where like you realize that, hey, like I have to have realistic goals. Of course, there's some goals that, I can have a pie in the sky type of dream. But I also have to have like realistic goals. And I think if there is a balance that I found, it's the understanding that certain goals come before poker. So just making sure that, I'm a good person at home, taking care of my kids and just being a good husband, like that comes first. And once I've accomplished that, then whatever time I have left, just being efficient with my time, not getting into trouble. And when everyone's asleep at night, I can get my few hours of work in by myself at night. And that's how I've managed to continue to get better, but then also like make sure that I'm not creating other issues outside of poker for myself.
Now, if you were to advise somebody who was maybe pursuing a parallel path to yourself, maybe transitioning or thinking of transitioning from one career and maybe embarking on a career in professional poker, outside doing what you've done and continuously looking to technically improve their game, what would you advise them to do to prioritize from the lessons you've learned?
This is talking about like people who aspires to go full-time in poker.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. I'm going to give a non-conventional answer, and my answer is going to be don't go into poker full-time. And certainly I'll explain it. I've gotten this question a lot from, friends and peers and people that I know locally in my space, but a ton of people have said, hey, I want to go full-time in poker. I've had success over the past year, whatever. I want to be just like you, or your story has inspired me and I want to go full-time. And almost every single circumstance I said, just don't. But if you're going to, these are my advice that you should do. Because, number one, like continue to work on your savings, your investment portfolio, your corporate skill set, whatever. Like keep on working on those things. Keep on working at your skills. Keep on playing the game that you love and trying to win, and make sure that over a large sample, you have the edge that you actually think you have. Because again, I've spoken to people who went full time and they did not, like within a year, they crashed, burned and left the game right away. And I think for those people, like they just reinforce the idea that like poker is really, really, really hard. And unless your desire is so strong and that you're sure that this is what you want to do, the idea of going pro is going to fade away for most people. I think a lot of people want to go into poker for the wrong reasons, right? Like some people just want to go to poker because they want the freedom, they want to make money. But like life is not that easy. Like poker actually doesn't give you the freedom that you think it will. And the lack of structure and the lack of hours and the lack of accountability from most people is going to be the reasons why they actually fail, not succeed. Now, with that being said, there's some people that I've met where it is just so obvious that they're meant for poker. They're geniuses in their own right, and that the game comes very natural to them, and they're willing to put in enormous amount of work to get good at the game. And for those people, absolutely, like poker is going to be amazing for them. But I think if you're playing poker for money, if you're playing poker for freedom, I think for a lot of people, it's not going to work out. But if you're playing poker for the love of the game, you're just naturally curious and you're very interested in figuring out strategies, developing your own, and really, thinking about poker from a competitive sense, then yeah, you can get a lot from poker.
Absolutely. Tell us about your ambitions for the next few years and going forward, Jay. How do you see things panning out, or certainly how would you like them to pan out?
Yeah, in the short term, I'm just trying to be the best poker player that I can be, given the time constraints that I have. At the same time, I'm dabbling into more tournament play, and I've had some moderate success over the last couple of years, and I'm hoping to keep on building on that. But yeah, I don't really think about poker as the grand all be all for me, personally speaking. But I think that over the next few years, I kind of have this like drive where I just want to put myself in a space to compete. I want to play against really, really good players and just see what I make of it. There's going to be a time where I'm ready to get back to live stream and like in the large shows, like the Lodge, getting on Hustler and other shows around the country. But until then, just really working on my game and being ready for when the opportunity comes. Because, I don't know when these opportunities are going to come, right? Whether it's next year or the year after that. But I do want to be ready. And whenever that moment comes, just want to put my best poker self out there and just compete against really good players.
Perfect. And where can our viewers and listeners follow your poker journey and connect with you online?
Yeah, I'm getting more active on X. So you can find me there on JWIN. And then on YouTube and Instagram, it'll be JWIN Poker.
That's great. And we'll post the links in the show notes so everybody can just click and join. Jay, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us today. Really interesting insights, both on your transition and also how professional you've been and how consistent you've been in applying various techniques to up your game. Really great takeaways for everybody. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast. I enjoy listening to it. And looking forward to doing more work with you soon, Stephen.
That's great. Cheers, Jay.
Cheers.
So thank you again to Jay for sharing his time and thoughts with us. Some really valuable takeaways around how to frame so-called downswings, how to deal with them, how to improve as a result of them, how to really structure your study and make sure you're achieving high quality impact from your study time, and many, many more things which really repay visiting and reproducing in your own game. Well, thank you again for being here, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Mindset Advantage podcast.
You've been listening to the Mindset Advantage podcast. To get future episodes delivered to you automatically, make sure to subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcasting service. To get any resources mentioned in the episode or to listen to past shows, visit pokermindcoach.com/TMA podcast. Thanks for listening.